How long has it been since you last returned to your hometown? I recently went through a devastating return that left me scarred for the rest of my life. I am June, 27 years old. After a long time struggling to make a living in the city, I finally had the chance to visit my grandmother. As I approached her house, I saw a man in disheveled clothes hastily walking out from inside. I quickly approached and greeted him.
Hello, sir. Did you come to visit my grandmother?
The man hesitated and replied,
Who are you?
I smiled and responded,
I'm Mrs. Smith's granddaughter. I came to visit her today. Is she home?
The man stammered.
I don't know. I didn't see her inside.
Then he hurried away. I didn't think much of it and quickly entered the house, calling out, Grandma,
I'm home.
There was no response. I walked to the door, continuing to call.
Grandma, where are you?
I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The house was dark, with only a faint light seeping through the window. Furniture was scattered everywhere as if someone had rummaged through them. I rushed into my grandmother's room, only to be hit by a pungent metallic smell that made me dizzy. In a panic, I turned on the light and froze in shock. Dried bloodstains covered the floor. Terrified, my voice trembled as I shouted,
Grandma! Grandma!
Suddenly, a dog's barking came from the backyard. It was Tom. My heart pounded as I ran outside. Tom barked even louder when he saw me, scratching the ground furiously as if trying to tell me something. The soil beneath Tom's paws looked freshly dug. A chill ran down my spine. I hurriedly dug into the ground, my heart racing. Soon, my hands touched a black plastic bag. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing a pair of frail, lifeless hands. I screamed in despair and collapsed onto the ground, tears streaming down my face. At that moment, Tom growled and barked fiercely behind me, his eyes fixed on something. I turned around and saw the man from earlier standing right behind me, gripping a sickle tightly in his hand. Terrified, I asked, Did you kill my grandmother? The man snarled.
You and your grandmother are such a nuisance. Let me send you to reunite with her.
Panicked, I screamed.
Is anyone there? Help me!
I tried to run, but he quickly grabbed me and pushed me to the ground. With a cold voice, he said,
There's no one around. Don't waste your breath.
He raised the sickle and lunged at me, but suddenly, Tom bit his ankle hard, making him scream in pain. Seizing the opportunity, I got up and ran. But before I could get far, Tom's agonizing yelp echoed. Then everything went silent. I froze, trembling, and turned back. Tom's head lay lifeless on the ground, severed from his body. The man, limping, approached me, his blood-stained sickle still in hand. Panicked, I stepped back and tripped over a rock, falling hard onto the ground. Despite his injury, he moved quickly, closing the distance between us. Desperate, I grabbed the rock I had tripped over and threw it at him. The rock struck his forehead. He screamed in pain and staggered backward. I got up and ran toward the front of the house, where I saw two young men returning from work. I shouted at them,
Help me, please!
They turned around, startled, and rushed toward me with worried expressions. Just then, the man chased after me, raising his sickle high, ready to strike. The two young men quickly grabbed a bamboo stick from the roadside and rushed toward the man. One of the young men grabbed a bamboo stick from the roadside and swung it at the attacker's hand, knocking the sickle away. The other struck his leg, making him collapse. The man screamed in agony as they quickly restrained him and tied him up with a rope. We immediately called the police, who took him into custody. I was devastated to learn that he had broken into my grandmother's house to steal and then brutally murdered her, dismembering her body and burying it in the backyard. Even now, I still blame myself. If only I had returned home sooner, perhaps things wouldn't have ended this way.
I'm Jane, a 22-year-old new tourism graduate. I am someone who is passionate about exploring new things, places where no one has ever set foot. Today, after just finishing work, I saw a newly opened coffee shop right under the company gate. The story I am about to tell may be an experience I will never forget in my entire life. My family has been in the traditional medicine business for a long time. When I was young, I often followed my father up the mountain behind our house to find precious medicinal herbs to sell. I still remember once my father told me that on the top of that mountain, there was an abandoned house. The house once had a person who committed suicide, and since then, that person's soul has haunted the place, never leaving. On a weekend, when I returned to my hometown to visit my family, I happened to run into Max, my middle school classmate. Max is a gentle, kind-hearted boy, and my family holds him in high regard. While we were reminiscing about old memories, Max suddenly mentioned the abandoned house. He said that the other day, a hiker happened to pass by that house and saw the shadow of a woman.
There's no way that's true. I don't believe it.
Many people in this village say that you haven't been back to the hometown for a long time, so you wouldn't know.
So, shall we go there tonight to watch?
No way, James. It's really scary.
It's okay. Trust me. After much persuasion, Max finally agreed to go there with me. We walked together along the path leading up the mountain. The path up there isn't too difficult, but it's quite far, so it took us about an hour to reach that house. I stood below looking up at the two-story house, an untouched house covered in green moss, with overgrown grass in the front yard. I was about to step into the house when Max said,
I think we should go back, James. I'm scared.
We've spent so much time getting here, there's no way we can just turn back easily. Come in with me. Max and I stepped into the house and looked around. The objects inside were old and scattered everywhere. I wondered why the owner of this house built it in such a desolate place. Max pulled my hand and pointed at the picture of a woman hanging on the wall. Her eyes appeared to be observing everything we did. I don't see anything scary, it's just a normal picture. Suddenly, Max asked me,
James, do you hear anything?
It seems I heard footsteps on the second floor. We went up to the second floor. The footsteps became clearer, seemingly coming from the last room in the hallway, as if someone was walking around in that room. I slowly walked up to the door of the room, and as I stood in front of the door, the footsteps suddenly disappeared. I tried to open the door but couldn't. It felt like someone was locking it from the inside. Is anyone in there? In response, all I heard was the wind outside the forest. Suddenly, the door slowly creaked open, and Max and I turned to look. I started to feel anxious and recalled the stories I had heard about this house. It was as if something compelled me to approach the door, and just as I raised my hand, a gust of wind blew, flinging the door wide open. I saw Max passed out lying in the hallway. I ran over and tried to wake him up. Max, what's wrong? Wake up! Looking back at the dark room, only the moonlight filtering through the window created an ethereal glow. I saw the silhouette of a woman standing by the window watching us. That was the woman in the photo in the living room, her gaze looking at me as if she were very angry. I heard her voice say to me,
Who allowed you to come in here?
I felt my whole body freeze, unable to move.
You shouldn't come here. This is my home.
The woman's voice growled. At this point, the whole house seemed to be enveloped in a chilly atmosphere, and the sound of the terrified wind howling outside was audible. The woman slowly approached us, her face pale and looking at us with anger. I felt a chill run down my spine. A thought echoed in my head. I have to leave here immediately. Max, wake up! We have to leave here! Max still lay motionless. In a panic, I pulled Max up, carried him on my back, and rushed out of the house. I ran straight ahead without daring to look back. My legs felt like they had no strength left, but fear wouldn't let me stop. I kept running through the forest until I saw the lights of the houses in the village. Even though 2 weeks have passed, the feeling of fear in my heart has not yet faded. The story about that house and the woman will probably become one of the most terrifying memories of my life. After this story, I advise you not to visit abandoned houses out of curiosity because you will never know what awaits you there. Have you ever left a bad review for an order? I never thought that a bad online review could drag me into hell. Hello, my name is Emily, 25 years old, a horror fiction writer for a renowned publishing company. I had written countless terrifying stories, but I never imagined that one day I would become the character in a real-life horror tale. It all started last month when I ordered dinner from a small, newly opened restaurant near my apartment building. Starving, I eagerly opened the food container, but the moment I did, a foul, nauseating smell hit me, making me rush to the bathroom to vomit. Even more horrifying, inside the container was something that looked like a decomposing human finger. Terrified, I immediately threw the food into the trash and left a 1-star review for the restaurant. I had no idea that this was just the beginning of a nightmare. Shortly after, I received a message from the restaurant owner. I can refund your money, Kyle, but it will cost you your life in exchange. I shivered at the words on my screen. Was this some sick joke or a real threat? My building had no security. So if the restaurant owner really wanted revenge, he could come straight to my apartment. After thinking carefully, I decided to stay overnight in the room of Helen, my colleague who lived upstairs, to avoid trouble. I had a camera installed outside my door so I could monitor my apartment through my phone. Looking at the screen, I saw a tall man wearing black sportswear and a baseball cap standing in front of my door. I wanted to tell Helen, but she was too focused on texting someone, seemingly unaware of my distress. Suddenly, the man looked directly at the camera, mumbling something under his breath. A large, deep scar ran down his cheek, making him look terrifying. He licked his lips, smirked with satisfaction, and then made a throat-slitting gesture before turning away. I trembled as I stared at my phone screen. What was he planning? I turned to Helen and realized she had been staring at me the whole time. Her gaze gave me an eerie feeling, as if something sinister was about to happen. I forced a smile and asked, "Helen, is something wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" Helen smiled slightly and said,
"Oh, it's nothing."
I nervously reached for my glass of water but accidentally spilled it on a notebook on the table. Hurriedly, I picked up the notebook to dry it, but a photo slipped out and fell to the floor. When I bent down to pick it up, my heart nearly stopped. In the picture was Helen smiling brightly next to the very same man who had stood outside my door. A horrifying realization struck me. Helen was the one who had recommended this restaurant to me. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Helen glanced at me before standing up to answer it. Sensing that something was wrong, I quickly opened Facebook and secretly started a live stream before hiding my phone. Helen soon returned, followed by the man from earlier. I placed my phone on the table and looked at them in fear. "Helen, who is this?" Helen smiled slightly and said,
"This is my boyfriend, the owner of the restaurant you rated 1 star.
I stammered. "What do you mean? Did you plan all of this?" Helen burst into laughter and said,
That's right. I hate your fake perfection. You took everything that should have been mine."
Then she suddenly slapped me hard across the face. A burning pain spread across my cheek, making my head spin. Helen pointed at me in anger and shouted,
"I was supposed to be the best writer. How dare a newcomer like you surpass me?"
Before I could react, Helen grabbed my collar and repeatedly struck me in the face. Each blow landed heavily, making my head spin as my vision gradually blurred from the throbbing pain. I struggled to stand and asked, "If you hate me so much, why did you let me stay here?" Helen laughed hysterically and said,
"Because I wanted to see you suffer, to watch you beg for mercy right in front of me."
Enraged, I shouted, "Keep dreaming! You're just a failure! Don't blame others for your incompetence!" The restaurant owner suddenly lunged forward and punched me hard in the stomach, sending me crashing onto the floor. Before I could recover, he pulled out a knife and slashed a deep cut across my shoulder. I screamed in pain, clutching my wound as warm blood soaked through my thin shirt. Helen stood over me laughing.
"Emily, beg me, and I'll let you die painlessly."
Through gritted teeth, I spat back. "I will never beg a loser like you." Furious, Helen snatched the knife from her boyfriend's hand and lunged at me. Just as I thought it was the end for me, a loud, urgent knocking sounded at the door. Helen froze, turning her face toward the door, silently observing the commotion outside. Sensing my chance, I immediately sprang up, kicked Helen away, and sprinted toward the door. Standing outside was Lucy, my close colleague from work, her face filled with panic. Lucy quickly caught me and asked worriedly,
Emily, are you okay?
I gasped, "Help me! Helen wants to kill me!" Before I could explain further, Helen shouted angrily,
Don't think you can escape from here.
She gripped the knife tightly and charged at us, her bloodshot eyes filled with madness. Lucy and I froze in fear as Helen's twisted expression made her look like a completely different person. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed behind us. Police officers had arrived. It turned out that when Lucy saw my live stream, she immediately called the police and rushed to my place. Helen and the restaurant owner were swiftly restrained and taken away before they could fight back. I let out a sigh of relief, but as the adrenaline faded, pain overwhelmed my body. Exhausted, I lost consciousness and sank into darkness. When I woke up, I found myself in the hospital, my wounds carefully bandaged. This nightmare was finally over, but the scars it left behind would haunt me forever.
After 5 years as a delivery worker, I never thought a single order could cost me my life. That night, close to midnight, I received an order for 2 servings of chicken rice. The delivery address was a house on the outskirts of the city. Even though I had a bad feeling about it, I had not received a single order all day, so I gritted my teeth and accepted it. When I arrived, I saw an old, desolate house standing alone in the middle of the woods. A cold gust of wind blew against me, sending shivers down my spine. I knocked on the door, but no one answered, so I took out my phone and called the customer.
The door is unlocked. Bring it inside.
I hesitated, but pushed the door open. The musty smell immediately filled my nose, making me grimace. The air inside was cold, as if no one had lived there for a long time.
I have your delivery. Is anyone here?
At that moment, the sound of a knife chopping down on wood, thick, heavy, and sharp, resounded from a room inside. I jumped, my heart pounding. Carefully, I tiptoed toward the door, and the scene before me made my stomach churn. A man was chopping a human arm. On the table, severed body parts were laid out in pieces. I screamed in terror. The thick, metallic scent of blood choked my throat, and I collapsed onto the floor.
You harmed someone. I have to call the police. Stay and help me, or I'll put you on this table next.
My entire body froze at his words. Fear forced me to turn back and help him pack the body parts into black bags. Each time my hands touched the cold, lifeless flesh, it felt as if thousands of insects were crawling over my skin. After we finished cleaning up, he ordered me to dispose of the black bags. Trembling, I carried them to a deserted riverside, tossing each one into the water before hurrying away. But as soon as I turned around, the man was already behind me, gripping a knife tightly, his cold eyes staring into mine.
You did well, but you still have to die. I did everything you asked. Please let me go. Let you go? You've seen everything. You can't live. I promise I won't tell anyone. Just let me go. The only way to keep a secret is to take it to the grave.
With that, he lunged at me. I dodged just in time, the blade grazing my arm and burning my skin. Enraged, he raised the knife again, his grip tightening as he thrust forward. On reflex, I grabbed his wrist, stopping the blade just inches from my face. His strength was terrifying. I used all my force to shove him back, making him stumble. Seizing the moment, I grabbed a rock from the ground and hurled it at his head. He cried out in pain, clutching his head as he staggered. I sprinted to my car, speeding away as I called the police. But by the time they arrived, the man had disappeared without a trace. A few days later, I returned home only to be greeted by a horrifying sight. A bloodied human arm lay in the middle of my floor. On the wall, a message was scrawled in dark red blood. You will have to disappear.
Did you really think you could escape me?
I spun around, locking eyes with the man. He aimed a gun at my head.
Please, I'll give you anything you want. I want your life.
In that instant, I grabbed his wrist, struggling to wrestle the gun upward. A gunshot rang out. The bullet struck the ceiling, sending dust falling around us. I jolted, loosening my grip, and he kicked my stomach hard, sending me crashing to the floor. I tried to push myself up, but before I could, his heavy foot slammed down onto my chest, pinning me against the cold tiles.
Don't waste your strength. You won't escape.
At that moment, my hand brushed against my phone in my pocket. Without hesitation, I yanked it out and hurled it at his face. With every ounce of strength left in me, I scrambled up, shoving him aside as I dashed toward the door. But before I could get far, a gunshot rang out. A searing pain shot through my leg, and I collapsed onto the floor.
You little rat. Let's see where you'll run now.
I refused to give up. Gritting my teeth, I crawled forward. Another shot rang out, piercing my other leg. I screamed in agony as my body convulsed and the world blurred.
Say goodbye to the world.
Suddenly, the door burst open with a loud bang. The man froze, eyes widening in shock. Before he could react, a bullet shot straight into his chest. Dark red blood slowly spread across his shirt. Police officers swarmed in, surrounding the house. I exhaled shakily, my body going limp as I shut my eyes in relief. It was finally over. I was rushed to the hospital, my legs soaked in blood. Though the killer was dead, the memory of that night haunted me every second of my life. The images replayed in my mind like a never-ending horror film with no escape.